There's always a silly comment. Hi guys, and welcome back to another week of TFW. This is a footballing show dominated by your opinions and supported by my trusty iPad. Let's get straight into it. Right, Twigslitty, the first one, has said, hottest opinion, Arsenal should be breaking the bank to improve their defence this summer. My God, I completely agree. Don't get me wrong, it was a great weekend. I love the fact that Spurs won the North London derby. It was a fantastic victory, but yes, any football fan, regardless of whether you support Spurs, Arsenal, anyone can see that their defence needs a massive, massive improvement. I mean, playing three at the back is fine, but you definitely need better defenders. I mean, the only reason you play three central defenders is because you don't trust them in a two. That's pretty much the line that's been told for quite a while. And unless you're exceptional defenders, you just can't deal with this. I mean, Kolasinac is a fullback, definitely not a left centre-back. And to trust Mustafi or David Luiz when they get pulled out and left to their own devices, did anyone see Mustafi sort of chase Harry Kane back into a random slide? Like, it was just calamitous for Arsenal, and it really makes a difference because going forward, they're so brilliant. And not only do they have good players, Arsenal, but they've also got really good players for the future, and the likes of Nketiah, the likes of Saka as well, Martinelli. They're coming through, and everything good that they do, and the players that they've got at the moment, is just being undone by sloppy mistakes. So yeah, I would break the bank. I think Saliba coming back is a big plus. On loan from Saint-Etienne. They've been linked with Upamecano. They've been linked to quite a few defenders, and I think that should definitely be their main area of improvement. Arteta knows that. If he doesn't, he's not a manager. If anyone at Arsenal thinks any other position apart from centre-back is the priority, they don't really know what they're doing. Carlos Garcia next said, if Spurs didn't have Kane or Son or Lloris, they would be relegated. You've just named pretty much the third of a starting lineup on a match day, and yes, of course, if you took the three best players from the Spurs out, they wouldn't do so well and may be relegated. I don't see what the point is in that. Kinechukwu Esekodi next up has said, hey Matt, what do you think about Man City's transfer ban being lifted? Love from Nigeria. This is an interesting one. So I will admit, I do not know all of the in-depth stats and dealings of all of this. Basically, it sounds like Manchester City obstructed an investigation for 5 years until the time limit was up where they could be investigated further on certain charges. I also feel like UEFA didn't have a strong enough case for this. There was a lot of pressure for Manchester City to be investigated and punished because of breaking the financial fair play rules from the Premier League and from everyone else as well. And, you know, UEFA wanted to look like they were actually doing something about it, that these financial fair play regulations that they brought in weren't a joke, weren't something that teams could easily get around. They needed, to make a strong stand, but it looks like they didn't really have enough and they were just trying to pin it on absolutely anybody. If they had enough, I'm sure that something a bit more stronger would have been done. As it stands, Manchester City have been fined 10 million euros, not the original 30 million euros. They haven't been banned for 2 years or at all from European competitions. They will be in the Champions League next season. Yeah, I mean, I understand where teams are like, oh, you want to see the big spenders brought down because they've brought their way to success, blah, 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 blah. If they haven't done anything wrong, which has proved they haven't done, there wasn't sufficient evidence, it wasn't proven they did completely nothing wrong, there wasn't sufficient evidence, then it's a fair answer, I guess. You wouldn't want to see any other judgment on any other call in life or anywhere given based off something that could have potentially happened or based off insufficient evidence. You don't want anything else given off insufficient evidence, so why would you ask for Man City? Unless you're a hater of Man City or you're a fan that thinks, screw the money and this and that, but it's part of the game, and if they've done it fairly, they've done it fairly. Amita Prakash up next. What do you think of Marco Asensio's return to football? 2 goals and 2 assists in 3 games. A good return. Will he start at Real Madrid or should Zidane look for a replacement or play Rodrigo? Attacking-wise, I don't think they need to look for a replacement. With Hazard there, then with Rodrigo, Jesus Reina and Vinicius Jr. as well, as other players in the attacking lineup, I don't think they need to find a replacement. The question for me is, where does Asensio play? He doesn't play in a central midfield position as far back as the likes of Kroos, Casemiro and Modric or Valverde. And if he does, he'd play as more as number 10. I'm not so sure he's a full-on wide player like the likes of Vinicius or Hazard either. and he's not a centre forward. I don't know, I feel like there's not quite a place for him in the team, and it's something that they wouldn't have had to think about because he's been out for so long. He's been out for almost a year. He's a sensational player, Asensio, don't get me wrong, and if they can fit him in the team, great. I'm not sure where his strongest position is. Having said that, yeah, 2 goals and 2 assists in 3 games since returning from an injury that could damage the confidence and the ability of a lot of players is pretty spectacular. Dipendra Bhandari has said, Brendan Rodgers always loses his nerve towards the conclusion of the campaign. Discuss, please. I think that's probably taking it a bit too far. I mean, if, Dipendra, you can name me any other times he's lost his nerve apart from Leicester falling to Bournemouth yesterday, or slipping up against Crystal Palace in that 3-3 draw and the slip to Chelsea. If you can name me any other time a Brendan Rodgers team has done that, then yeah, by all means. But I think that's very, very typical of 2020. Very reactionary. I seem to think that he did very well with Swansea, and he got to a big game at the end of the season. They won the playoffs. With Celtic, I think they won every single competition he was a part of. Granted, that's probably easier when you're the best team in Scottish football. But yeah, I wouldn't say he lost his nerve. If anything, no manager in the world is planning for Kaglasyanshu to do what he did, to kick a striker in the net and get sent off. Like, something went wrong before that. I mean, there's 2 massive errors. But if Leicester play the rest of the game with 11 men, I'm not so sure they lose 4-1. So I don't think he's losing his nerve. And yeah, again, Gerrard slipping, it's a big mistake from him. I would find it very harsh to pin that on Rodgers. Next up, Zakari Musa said, seeing as this year's Champions League knockout matches are one-legged, I feel like we may be very surprised by the teams that end up in the finals. After all, no matter how good a team is, one bad day is all it takes. I agree, Zakari. I think it's going to be very, very interesting. Teams are approaching it in a knockout way of one match, which means they've got to go for it. There isn't the psychology of, oh, we could do with a draw here, we could do with a clean sheet away from home, or we could do with an away goal away from home. There isn't any of that. It's 90 minutes, and much like, as we mentioned before with the Leicester thing, it could change. Like, imagine if, okay, let's take the PSG Atalanta, for example. Atalanta had a very good season. You would still think PSG are favourites going into this tie. I don't know. The first 2 minutes, Atalanta get a penalty. It was last man. Someone like Kimpembe or whoever's playing PSG gets sent off. You got a red card. It changes the complexion of those 90 minutes. There isn't another tie when PSG are going to be back to 11. Something happens early on, you know, a freak goal, anything like that. So yeah, it really, I agree. I think it really, really will change a lot. And you'll see that both teams are going to kind of go for it because no one's going to be claiming home advantage or away advantage, and it's 90 minutes of football. I'm very much looking forward to it. Mayowa has said, if Sheffield United qualify for European spot, Chris Wilder should be given the PFA Manager of the Year award over Klopp. I'm not sure it's the PFA who give that out. That's the Football Association. I'm sure it's the LMA, the League Managers Association. Maybe I'm completely wrong. The Manager of the Year award over Klopp. Whew, that's a tough one. If Liverpool smash the points record, they've technically had the best season of any Premier League team ever. So I'd find it very difficult to not give it to Klopp. I think the problem is that you're basing it off of what's good for a certain team. Like, obviously that's amazing for Sheffield United, but overall in the Premier League, finishing in the Europa League isn't that impressive. Yes, they've obviously done it a season after coming up, but Wolves did the same last year. I think, and obviously Klopp was expected to challenge for the title given how close they were at Manchester City last season. I still think though, if Liverpool do break the record, that is, yeah, they got the most points out of any Premier League team ever. So it'd be very difficult to not give them the award. But if you're talking other teams, then yeah, I think Chris Wilder definitely should be in there. Not_Sem1 has said, hottest opinion, Victor Lindelof is underrated. He has not been dribbled past this season. There's always a silly comment. That is not a stat. Being dribbled past is not a stat you can use in an argument. Yes, everyone banged on about Van Dijk not being dribbled past. That's not a thing. He has been Manchester United's best centre-back and does not get the credit as Maguire. I love the content from Sweden. Oh, it's from Sweden. That makes sense with the whole Lindelof bandwagoning. I think Lindelof has been good. I still think Manchester United are in the market for a centre-back, and if they do buy a centre-back, it is to take Lindelof's place. Maguire's place is not the one under threat. I think he's been very good this season, as has Lindelof. I just think there's a reason. Certainly, I only hear from within the Premier League. Premier League and the media and the fans and the teams are the ones closest to English football. I certainly feel like if Lindelof was that underrated and he'd been much better than Maguire, he would have got the credit. There's no way that a fantastic season like that would go under the radar and go missing. He's done well, definitely done well, but I think Maguire gets the credit for a reason, for being a very good centre-half. A bit of it you could say is due to his price tag. Maybe United fans, maybe the media are trying to give more credit to him so it doesn't look like such a waste of money. What was he, 80 million? But yeah, I think Lindelof's the worst of the two centre-backs. Not to say he's bad, he's just the worst of the two. Michario Madden next up has said, that was a big win for Bournemouth against Leicester. Yes, it was, my word, 4-1. Solanke scored. That's when you know shit's getting weird. That may really hurt Leicester as they're trying to hold a Champions League spot. It does, and because of the Manchester City ban, it hurts them even more. So if City were banned from Champions League competition, 5th place would have got the last Champions League spot, because City are going to finish inside the top 4. So that was massive. A team could afford to maybe slip down, not have the greatest run in, considering the fact that Leicester were comfortably in 3rd when football restarted. The slip down to 5th, they still make the Champions League, but now it looks like City are going to finish 2nd. Chelsea and United look favourites to finish 3rd and 4th. Yeah, I think this is massive for Bournemouth, especially as Aston Villa won, if they want to stay safe from relegation. Watford won as well, I believe. Yep. That's really hurt Leicester. And Leicester have got, I think they travel to Tottenham and they play, might be Arsenal, might be someone else. A couple of tough games coming up as well. And last but not least, Nganji Noah said, my opinion this week, here's an interesting one, is that Matt doesn't read the best opinions, he just reads the most popular. Firstly, who's to say what's the best and the worst? Because it's just an opinion. Secondly, I don't read the most popular, in fact, because everyone bangs on about the same thing, and this leads me on to a quick note for the rest of TFW. I will pick the interesting topics, not the same ones that get asked every week. So, for those of you asking about Lewandowski and the Ballon d'Or, yes, I believe he's the favourite for the Ballon d'Or. For asking about the Champions League, yes, I think the Bayern Munich are favourite for the Champions League. There we go. You don't have to ask any questions about Lewandowski, the Ballon d'Or, about Bayern Munich winning the Champions League, or about Cristiano Ronaldo scoring penalties, because it's what he does. He's a great penalty taker. In fact, he has the same as Ciro Immobile this season. No one's hating on Immobile for scoring penalties. Everyone's hating on Ronaldo. Nonsense. Anyway, yeah, if you're talking about Lewandowski, I probably won't pick it. Sorry, guys. Anyway, that is all for TFW this week, though. Thank you so much for all of you who did send them in. As I say every week, every Sunday night in the YouTube community tab as well, I'll post the TFW GIF logo thing, where you guys can leave your hottest opinions underneath it. That's all from me, though. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you smash the like button and check out the other stuff we've got going on OneFootball. Until next time, though, I will see you guys later.